Good morning and welcome to the session of the daily news analysis for 25th of October 2021. And here we are back today with some amazing discussion because we already had a weekend, right? I'm sure you all must have had a really good weekend, right? And yesterday there was an amazing match was also going on between India and Pakistan, but unfortunately, yes, we have lost it, but it doesn't mean we've lost the World Cup too, right? It is definitely going to be an amazing season, I hope, right? And yeah, coming to this particular session, right, coming to the daily news analysis of 25th of October 2021, we would be having a topic that would be taken up in a very detailed perspective in the end today regarding the COP26. Before we go ahead to the discussion of the COP26 and few more topics that will be taken up, right, I just would like to let you all know about this 21st to 27th of October. You have got an amazing offers from the side of Unacademy with respect to the plus subscription, right? Unacademy provides you the top educators who would be teaching you subjects in a most better way, and also they would be providing you with a comprehensive test series of prelims, mains, as well as the optional test series is also available based on your subscription model too, right? An academy would also deliver you the books directly, which are the high quality reading material. You'd have dedicated doubt clearing sessions and answer writing practice sessions, and a very good coverage of the current affairs would also be taken up to. And yep, most interesting is that on 27th of October, starting from 27th of October, the All India Rank 13, Mr. Gaurav would be taking a bilingual batch, which would be consisting of around, we could say, 9 sessions, around 10 sessions would be conducted, where 5 classes on essay, 2 will be on strategy and 3 will be on answer writing too, right? And if there is anyone who's planning to take 9 months of subscription, because we have 9 more months for the prelims 2022, you can use a code to get a discount. With optional, you'd be getting a discount of 38%. That's an amazing offer you'd be getting, right? 28% by default and 10% using the referral code. That's Ajay IAS, right? And if you're planning for 1 year, 2 year or 3 year subscriptions, yes, you'd be having the different kind of price also for that, where you'll be getting 25% of discount by default and 10% will be more, using the referral code which is highlighted here. This is something that you'd be getting here, guys. Okay, and yep, for 3 months also you have an offer that will be 20%, that will be 10% with optional and 10% using the referral code, right? And various batch courses have already been started on 21st of October very recently. The top educators would be taking very interesting sessions on the batch courses too. I mean, especially the optional as well as in the batch courses too, right? I'll be also a part of various batches where I'll be taking up the NCRTs, and I'll be taking the concepts related to, we could say, with respect to the science and technology, disaster management, internal security and whatnot, many more things, right? So let's not delay much, and guys, let's start getting into the topics of the day. And the first topic is right before us, right? The state of Assam has seen a great impact right now. We often see about how there has been a kind of discussion happens in various states regarding the bifurcation of a state. There are many states which have been created in India, where that is done through the bifurcation of the already present states, and dividing the states based on different kind of reasons, right? And you have a lot of states, for example, the most recent being the state of Telangana. And right after, before that, we also have seen with respect to the state of Jharkhand, we have seen a lot of states which have been bifurcated. You could see Uttarakhand, you could see, Himachal Pradesh. You have seen a lot of states which have been bifurcated, and, they have been formed. But here comes a new demand from the side of Assam, right? Assam has seen some kind of issues which have been very complex in particular. But in the recent past, now there is another growing issue that's going on, where there were some hoardings of Jal Jeevan Mission have been there in Assam, especially in a region called as Barak Valley. So in this Barak Valley, there were hoardings of Jal Jeevan Mission, and they were shown, the slogans of the government have been given in Assami language. And after this particular thing has happened, this Barak Valley is a region which is majorly consisting of the Bengali majority people, and these Assamese slogans have been defaced. They have been completely painted in black. So they say that there is an imposition of Assami being done. They said that there is an imposition of Assami language being done in Barak Valley, where they say that here it is Bengali's official language in Barak. And this consists of three districts of Assam called Kachar district, Hailakandi and Karimganj. They say that we have an official language of Bengali and we cannot tolerate imposition of Assami over them. But many valley based organizations, like especially Brahmaputra side, what they say is that, including the All Assam Students Union, says that you defacing Assami language is an insult to Assami language and to the people of Assam. So they say very clearly that the miscreants who have done that must be arrested, and they already have been arrested according to the police too. But there now a demand starts. There has been a situation going on here to maintain the peace and tranquility. It's better that there should be given a kind of Barak Valley, must be given a kind of statehood to them, so that we could put an end to the language based conflict, says some experts too. But this is going to be a very, very, very important thing, like as we have to be very specifically have to be very clear. So this is going to be an important news for us, considering what is happening in the state of Assam. Now moving on to the next one. Some time ago the Delhi government wanted to try and test the Bio Decomposer. So Bio Decomposer is nothing but basically a solution. So what they do with the solution is that they will take the solution and spray in the agricultural field. So when that solution is sprayed in the agriculture field, right, the stubble, whatever that is present in the agriculture field, would be decomposed into manure. So that is something which is generally done. And they say that this Bio Decomposer, which is basically brought up by the government of Delhi, is an amazing thing according to some people. So some people say that, the solution was sprayed last year. This has helped a lot because government was doing this at a free of cost. And now they have stated this year also, the authorities stated they have sprayed the solution in over 500 acres of the fields already. And they say that we would continue to do that till November 15th. And last year that has been sprayed in around 1935 acres. But what is the importance of it? On one side, government says, what they are bothered about is the time that is being taken for this particular process. The government says that the government will come to the people. The officials will go to the villages. They will register the names of the people who want the solution. But in reality, what they are saying is, it is the farmers who are going to the office of the block development officer and they are registering their names there. And the government has taken almost a week's time after the harvest so that they can spray the solution. And they say, if there is this delay happening, if the delay is being done by the government, especially for spraying of this particular solution, that may delay the sowing season too, which could have a very huge impact on the people. But now, when it is being brought up, some people were a bit skeptical about, how can this would work. But some people, a farmer has stated that, because of what government has done right now, because last year he has let the government to spray this in 11 acres of his, this particular, in his field. And he said that they were able to save around 1500 rupees per acre. So which means for 11 acres he has been able to save 11 into 1500 rupees. So that is something which is an amazing thing according to them. So what they do under this particular case, before this particular thing was there, so what they used to do is that they have to plow the field for several times, to cut the stubble, they have to plow the field for not once, for multiple times. And after 2 to 3 rounds of this plowing, they have to release the water into the field. And then the water has to be left like that for almost 10 days. And the water will generally help decompose this particular stubble. That was the case. But now, the spraying of decomposer, though involve a similar kind of process, but you don't have to do the plowing, that many times too. So initially they were not ready to actually let the government to spray this. But they thought, looking at the way the things have been going on, they felt it is better like this, and they have allowed it. And they are saying that this is definitely bringing up the great results according to them. So that is about this particular topic. Right? That's a simple one. Now, in India, firstly, the poor people have a very great problem in reaching out to the courts. Because it is a costly affair, unfortunately. Unfortunately, in India, the justice system is the costliest affair. And when you're talking about something like this, the people must have access to the courts. So, the Chief Justice of India, who has been very proactive in clearing the names for appointment of the judges in the recent past and in many more things, he now has asked the Union Law Minister to ensure that a proposal that he is making called as National Judicial Infrastructure Authority of India. So this must be given a statutory backing. He is asking a bill has to be brought up in the upcoming winter session of Parliament so that we create a statutory body like this. So the Chief Justice of India has asked this particular thing, and where he stated it is very, very important. Because when you have a proper infrastructure for the courts, absolutely that's a very important thing. And according to them, they say that even now in India, there are many courts which are operating from those particular structures which are not perfect. And they are unable to perform properly because of that. So the CJI says the judicial infrastructure is very, very important for ensuring the access to justice. And we also have to meet the growing demands of people, which is where they are very well aware of its rights. So there is a development economically, socially and culturally. So they say we have to develop the judicial infrastructure and we also have to take care of it properly. Now he also brings up a fact sum here. So what he says is the total sanctioned strength of judicial officers is 24,280 and the number of courts are 20,143, which includes 620 rented halls and all. And of this, 26% of the courts do not have separate toilets for the ladies. And that's a serious issue. 16% of the courts doesn't have a gents toilets. And only 54% of the courts have a purified drinking water facility and only 5% of them have basic medical facilities. And 32% of the courts have separate record rooms. Only 51% of them have a library. 27% of the courts have a computer placed on judges' dais with video conferencing facility. They say that we are, having a really bad time. So this needs to be taken seriously according to them. Okay, so that is something which has been mentioned by the Chief Justice of India and that has become a very, very important issue in the recent past. Okay, so that is one perspective of this particular case I'll tell you. Okay, now looking at the second one. Now with respect to the relations that we have with Bangladesh. Right, when it comes to the relations that India has with Bangladesh, Bangladesh is among very few nations that India has a really, really, really good relations. There's no doubt in saying this. There's no hesitation in saying this literally. That Bangladesh is among very, very, very few nations that India has a really good relationship. As we always say, today Bangladesh as an independent nation, after separating from the country of Pakistan, and yes, it has become a reality with the support of India, without any doubt we could say. And in the recent past, there have been some issues happening in Bangladesh, like there have been attacks happening against a particular community, the minority Hindus, and especially in the country of Bangladesh, has caused some kind of ripples. But India did not take a hard stand about that also. So very recently, the Foreign Secretary of India was addressing a particular meeting and he says that India's relationship with Bangladesh is a role model in the international affairs. So he was taking up a speech on the role of IAF in the 1971 War of Liberation. So he talks about how Indians made, how Indians have assisted the people of Bangladesh, especially in the genocide that was being done by the Pakistani military against the people of Bangladesh. Without any doubt we could say, Today, India and Bangladesh relations are so deeper than any other kind of strategic partnership according to them. So, this should be the role model for the entire relationship that India is having with many other nations according to them. So, in the recent past, there has been attacks as I already told you, but the Foreign Secretary did not mention anything about the condition of, minority Hindus who have faced attacks in the recent Durga Puja celebrations. So which shows very clearly that India has been very, very cautious in this. Right after the violence, right, there are some particular people, the Ministry of External Affairs has already stated that Bangladesh has dealt with the violence very better way. And but there are some people who actually criticize the government of Bangladesh, stating that there is a slow response from their side. But right after the incidents, High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh also met some community leaders, and that has not been publicized though. But at any point of time, they say very clearly that Bangladesh and India are having a really good relationship, and Bangladesh is India's biggest development partner and India's largest trading partner in South Asia. And they say both are trying their best to further improve their relations too. So this makes it very clear that India is not ready to oppose Bangladesh in these particular matters too. So this shows very well that how India wants to go ahead with respect to the ties, and we don't want them to be affected too. And Bangladesh has seen a very high profile visits recently, a lot of projects that are being taken up by Chinese. But the Sheikh, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, has inaugurated a project called Bangabandhu Bangladesh China Friendship Exhibition Center. This was brought up in 26 acres. That's a kind of cooperation between Bangladesh and China. They will have lot of fairs, exhibitions and all around the year, and that would give a kind of platform to show what is the strength of Bangladesh in industrial and economic areas. So that is about this particular thing we have. So that's with respect to ties with Bangladesh, a role model. Okay. Then we have as the next one, that is about trade of India with that of China. Before we go and start discussing about the trade of India with that of China, many people in India says, we should try our best. We should actually prevent, as much as possible, we should prevent the trade with that of China. But the question would be that, is it really that easy as people are saying? And answer is definitely no. Now the trade between India and China is connected so much that in 2021, we are expecting the trade to go and cross $100 billion mark. For the first time, this is something which is going to happen. So which means, if you are cutting down any kind of relationship with that of China, it's not just China that would be affected, even it would be the country of India too. On one side, there is a border crisis that is going on. Another side, we have a completely different side too. So it's very important that we have to address this border crisis. At the same time, we also have to ensure that we need to maintain this kind of really good relations that we have. So absolutely, on one side we say China, we don't care about it, and on the other side we are having this kind of trade. Both are a bit contradictory trends too. But recently a breakthrough has happened where Hyderabad-based company called Dr. Reddy's Laboratories were allowed to launch an anti-cancer drug in China, which could become a very huge market for them. Okay, and now when you talk about this, both the Foreign Secretary of India and the an ambassador to China have highlighted the importance of the trade between India and China. They talk about pharmaceuticals especially have a huge potential in this particular case. And he also, in an interview to the Global Times, has stated that there was some ongoing boundary crisis there, but they are trying to resolve that peacefully. And because of the boundary crisis, there is no specific growth that is happening. In the case of bilateral ties too, absolutely it is putting a shadow on bilateral ties. And even the Foreign Secretary has linked the border standoff to entire relationship that we have. And it is completely against the both sides too. There is a kind of relationship that's there. We need to look into them. And the peace and tranquility should not be disturbed too. And the trade ties in the recent past have increased a lot. Where on one side, India acknowledged the lowest point since 1988, some time ago, after the LAC issue and everything happened. There has been a greatest reduction in the trade that we had too. But this month, China's customs authority have released this particular figures, said that the two-way trade after 9 months have reached $90.37 billion, which is 49.3% increase compared to last year. And India's imports from China have reached around $68.4 billion, which is an increase of 51.7%, which clearly shows that India is heavily dependent on China on majority of the things. And in the last 20 years, electric machinery, active pharmaceutical ingredients, other things like, medical supplies, especially we have brought in the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. India has bought a lot of, ventilators, PPE kits, whatnot, a lot of things too. And the Chinese global exports of medicine and medical supplies have increased to 108% this year, and medical supplies are the ones which have become a latest trade dependency. India also imports 70% of our APIs, that is active pharmaceutical ingredients, from China, and more than 90% of our solar components comes from China. And if this relation is going to be immune, that is, on border there will be something, but despite whatever is happening on the border, if the relationship between India and China is continuing like this, then they say that this is definitely going to be an amazing thing. But on the side of telecom, we have not allowed the Chinese companies to be a participant in the 5G trials too. So this inflow of Chinese funds into the tech sector has also been stopped. So Chinese private equity and venture capital investment have gone below $1 billion for the first time since 2017. Even that is there. And now, even the foreign secretary stated the size of trade deficit has increased a lot, definitely, right? And there has been a lot of areas where India is competent to. So we have brought initiatives like production incentive scheme. We are focusing on resilience of India's manufacturing sector. So they are trying their best to address this particular problem very well. So that is something which we have between the trade related between both these countries. That's a point we have to. Okay, right. Moving on to the next topic. In the last few days, we have heard about a discussion that's going on about the genetically modified rice and all. Very recently, we have seen that there is some particular company, of rice flour. They've claimed that they have found the rice flour of 500 tons of broken rice that has been imported from India, and they started putting the blame on India, stating that it is the genetically modified rice which have come from India. Now, the European Union generally does not permit any use of genetically modified rice, or the manufacturers of confectionery items and baked goods. They are not allowed to do any of these things. As a result of it, they have recalled a lot of products which have been sent. Now, a complaint letter has gone from farm as well as environmental groups. So now Indian authorities stated they are investigating the allegations. But one thing that they have made it very clear from the side of India is this: they are talking about 500 tons of broken rice. 500 tons, if we are talking about, that's nothing but a commercial cultivation. But the most important thing is that in the case of India, the point is very simple, that we don't have any commercial cultivation of the genetically modified rice. Right now in India, there is only one genetically modified cotton is something which we call it as BT cotton, is only allowed commercial crop. There is no other commercial crop that is allowed to be grown in India. But there are some field trials going on for about 20 genetically modified crops. That's a different thing. But the question would be that, sir, what are these genetically modified rice? So generally what you do is that the genes of that particular plant, whatever are there, are artificially modified. So that would be done by inserting the genetic material from another organism. Let's say that there used to be a bacteria, BT, Bacillus thuringiensis. So you try to take this particular bacteria and insert into it. So that's definitely going to be genetically modified. But why do you do the genetical modification? It's just that you want to see a greater yield, or you want it to be a herbicide tolerant, or you want it to be resistant from a disease or drought resistance, or you want to improve the nutritional value. For example, right now, to improve the nutritional value of vitamin A, we use a beta carotene, so which has been brought up in the name of golden rice. So this is a kind of complex thing. As I already told you, that India does not allow the commercial cultivation of any crop except BT cotton right now. So they're saying very clearly that this has come from India. It's absolutely absurd. And now here India, they have been carrying out a lot of a lot of inquiries are being taken up to by the Indian Agriculture Research Institute, Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, and there are some private firms like Bayer and Bioscience and Maheko. Many of them are coming up with it. But if someone asks a question that was genetically modified rice really exported from India, and yes, the answer is definitely no chance, because there is no commercial cultivation of genetically modified rice is going on. And now the European Union has also failed to say exactly what is the exact source of contaminant, and they don't know at which stage it has happened. The point is that it could have happened anywhere after it has been exported. For example, it has been exported by a Maharashtra based trader, and that has already received a non-GMO certification by a testing agency just before the shipping. So they say that it is not possible for this. But what would be the cost of this on us? I mean to say, especially on the Indian farmers and Indian rice and all. The point is very simple, that it would cost dearly for us, because India exports rice to around 75 countries, which is worth around 65,000 crores. So we sell around 18 million tons of this particular thing, which could be a bit problematic thing. And now for Indian farmers, the nightmare would be that, like in US, what happened in 2006 was, when some amount of genetically modified rice variety has been tested, they found in the shipments ready for exports. And trading partners like Japan, Russia and EU has suspended the rice imports from US, which has made this particular farmers to suffer a lot, and this company has to pay $750 million in damages too. So India has drafted the policy in the similar way, but we just have to wait and see, when there is exact contaminant that is known and where it has happened, then it would be easy for us also to take a proper step in this. Else we cannot do anything on this for right now. Okay, so that is about this particular topic. So moving on to the next topic of the day. Now this is about today's newspapers, right? China has brought a new law which they formalize, the actions that are being done along the LAC. So the China's legislature has adopted a new border law, and that would start effective from 1st of January, which says that the state and military have to safeguard the territory and combat any acts that undermine the Chinese territorial claims. And this law was first proposed in March this year, so which has been, which have seen a lot of issues along the LAC, where the People's Liberation Army has mobilized 2 divisions in forward areas, and they have done a lot of transgressions too. And China already has unresolved border disputes with both India as well as Bhutan too. But in the recent past, they have also come into an MOU to address the problems along the Bhutan. But this new law, what it says, they say whatever the action that have been done by the Chinese in the disputed areas, they would formalize them. Which means the People's Liberation Army of China can bring a huge amount of troops in the forward areas along the India's border, and the construction could also be taken up in the borders with that of Bhutan. And this has been just a ceremonial thing. They have adopted a new law which focuses on protection and exploitation of countries' land border areas. They don't want any exploitation of them. And the law makes it very clear that the sovereignty and territorial integrity of People's Republic of China are sacred and inviolable, and they will take any measure to safeguard the territorial integrity and land boundaries and guard against and combat any act which undermines the territorial sovereignty and land boundaries. They say we will try to strengthen the border defense and all. So this, under this, they have Article 22 says that they shall carry out the border duties, including the drills, and resolutely prevent, stop and combat invasion, encroachment, provocation, other acts too. They will say they will try to deal with this particular thing. They try to resolve their best in the disputes too. That is first thing they will see. But if that doesn't take care properly, so they would be ready to take any kind of action in one perspective. So this shows very clearly that they are certifying whatever the action that have been done by their particular soldiers in the recent past. They say this would be continuing in a similar fashion. So that is what we have in this particular topic. And yes, this is the festival season as we all knew. And what has happened also is a very well known fact. The point was very simple. In this festival season, things have gone like this. Where the point was very simple, as I told you, that there has been a change happen here about the oil prices. Oil prices have almost doubled in the recent past. And this festival season, there will be a great demand, right? So now the central government has asked the state to take actions to reduce the price of this particular oil for the consumers. And also, they are reviewing the stock holding limits too. So they said that keeping the festival season in mind, they said that they should not allow any stakeholder to hold the stocks for more than 2 months of the storage capacity, they say. And the inflation in the edible oils and fats have gone up to 34.2% in September. Okay, this has been going up a lot. So they say they have to take an action in this particular case and address this particular problem. Now, the next one we have is this. The Social Justice and Empowerment Ministry has recommended the National Fund to control the drug abuse has to be carried out to carry out the de-addiction programs rather than just the policing activities too. So the Secretary of the Department of Social Justice and Empowerment stated the fund was created according to the provisions of Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act of 1985. So they say they have a corpus of around 23 crores. And this amount is till now used only for the policing activities, but they want to propose to add de-addiction to that also. So they say the proposal to decriminalize. Now there is a proposal that has come that if a person is found with small quantities of drugs, so they have proposed that this will be decriminalized. And they say very clearly in NDPS Act, this makes it very clear. Because any person who is found with some amount of drugs, they would be rather considered as a patient than a supplier. They say they are the ones who are conducting the de-addiction programs. They would intervene and have the persons caught with small quantities of the drugs will be sent to the rehabilitation instead of being prosecuted and sent to jail. And the department had around 250 crores annual budget for the de-addiction activities too. So they say that would be taken up properly. In the recent issues going on too about the Shah Rukh Khan and Aryan Khan issues. So they are also looking into this particular case, we would say. That is about that particular topic. And we have one last topic for the day. That's the COP26. So COP26 starts from the 1st of November. Right, where the leaders of the world would be traveling to the Glasgow, which is present in Scotland of UK. So they would be traveling on 31st of October and the COP26 would start officially from 1st of November. Now there has been a lot of things going on about the climate change. There's no doubt to say that the world is suffering, the climate crisis happening. There has been a great evidence about that. Among these particular fresh warnings and the new evidence that is coming up, and there's a worsening of this particular climate crisis. So negotiators from all over the world are right now coming to do this particular assembling in Glasgow from next week, where they would look into some issues which have not been taken very seriously in the Paris Climate Agreement for the last 2 years. The COP26, which we call it as 26th Conference of Parties of the United Nations Framework for the Convention on Climate Change, was scheduled to be held last year, but it has not taken due to the COVID-19 pandemic too. But this official agenda, right now what they have is to finalize the rules and procedures for implementation of Paris Agreement. It should have been completed by 2018, but it has not. And most of the discussions right now are going to be focusing on net zero targets for the countries too. Now, what exactly is a carbon neutrality? We often see this. A carbon neutrality is that where the emissions of the country are equal to the absorption of the greenhouse gases, so that what happens is that the net emissions are zero. So this is the very, very important thing. But this annual climate change meetings, which we call it as COP, is a UN-backed process which has started in 1990s in particular. And now the world has realized that the greenhouse gas emissions were powering an increase in the temperature. So it's very important that it is going to be a tough thing for us. We need the world to specifically understand about what is happening, and we need to take some particular action in this particular case. And in the last few years, the meetings have achieved a huge success. They are focusing on bringing a changes in the climate change to deal with this particular global agenda and all too. So that's going to be a very important thing. And this process has also delivered two international agreements too. That is called Kyoto Protocol in 1997 and Paris Climate Agreement of 2015. So both of the objectives of this is that they would like to cut down the global emissions. And now, what are the outcomes of these meetings? And the outcomes of these meetings have not matched the scale of response that is required. The original objectives in terms of these emissions, have not been taken very seriously, and they have been diluted a lot. Now, they have come across with the large goals, and most industrialized nations have not delivered their initial promise to. There has been not much reduction, and the climate crisis has worsened in the last 20 years. This is a very, very, very serious thing. And when you talk about the carbon emissions, the rules and procedure of the Paris Agreement are still not yet there because the countries are not yet ready to discuss too. And this carbon emissions are important things to facilitate the emissions reductions, and they are an integral part of the Kyoto Protocol, which has now given way to the Paris Agreement. And under the Kyoto Protocol, a lot of rich industrial countries were allowed to choose some specific emission targets, and they have not been able to achieve much in this particular case also. And the emissions were there in the entire world. That has to be taken very seriously, but that has not. In the recent past, there are a lot of countries, especially the developing ones like China, India and Brazil, they've got a huge amount of carbon credits. And they are in a great demand because developed countries want to achieve their targets. So they used to depend on these countries, to buy this particular carbon credits too. But now, that did not go further, right? That did not go further, and the countries were unable to meet their targets. They are continuing to do this. But now, what is happening here is that there are many countries which have walked out of the Kyoto Protocol because they say there is a drop in the demand. A lot of things have been going on. It's very important. The world has to understand the seriousness. And the net zero is going to be more important, I would say, where more than 50 countries have already pledged for the carbon neutrality by the mid of the century. And China has also announced that they would achieve the status by 2060. Germany announced it by a target of 2045. And India, which is the largest emitter, which among the largest three emitters, have not made any commitment on the net zero, and we don't want to commit on that immediately. Whereas many other developing countries have also been resisting this, stating that the developed world is now putting the burden on everyone else, which is definitely wrong. Because the developed countries have done a lot of emissions, and it is their responsibility to take a proper actions on them too. Unfortunately, they are failing them, and the developed world cannot put this particular burden on the developing countries in particular, which could also have a very huge impact. For example, a virtual meeting has taken up very recently, where ministers of 24 nations, which is called as like-minded developing countries, have stated very clearly that no one can force us to achieve a net zero target on everyone. And it says that it went against equity and climate justice, where India is also a part of this LMDC, and China is also a part of it, and other members like Indonesia, Malaysia, Iran, Bangladesh, Philippines and Sri Lanka are also a part of it too. And now, what I want to remind to the developed world is this, that the developed countries have always broken their promises. So, you cannot now put the burden on the developing nations. Despite lack of ambition shown before 2020, even in their nationally determined contributions, major developed countries are now trying to shift the global post on the Paris Agreement. Many countries have not even achieved this kind of targets which they have announced under the nationally determined contribution themselves. And what you're asking now, net zero emissions from all countries by 2050, is absolutely not possible because many countries have been suffered to. The discussions on net zero will definitely start here in the Glasgow, but it would definitely not show a positive result at all, because there have been instances even in the past where the things did not go very well. So what are the different COPs or different agreements that have happened? We'll try to have a look at them also in the next 5 minutes. Number one is about the 1992 Earth Summit of Rio de Janeiro. Right, this meeting was set up especially for the negotiations on an international climate change agreement. So what it has stated is very clearly that they talk about the developing countries have few obligations and capabilities compared to the developed world. And the developed countries have agreed that a non-binding commitment would be done to take measures to return to their 1990 emissions levels by 2000. That is something that has been done. Then in 2009, COP15 of Copenhagen, where they wanted to finalize a new agreement, but it has not happened. Over 110 countries have assembled. Heads of the nations have assembled, but differences were too much. Countries agreed to try again a few years later, and the developed countries have committed to mobilize $100 billion every year so that they can help the developing countries. That's in 2009. Then you have in 1997 COP3 of Kyoto. So which is basically Kyoto Protocol has been signed, which we know that they have seen emission reduction targets for some developed countries that they want to achieve by 2012, and others were supposed to take voluntary action to this too. But the Kyoto Protocol already expired last year, because Paris climate has actually come up to. Then we also have many more agreements like that. We could say COP13 of Bali. So where they have actually talked about the CBDR. The CBDR stands for common but differential responsibilities. What exactly does it mean? Everyone wants to achieve a common output here. That is common goal is to reduce emissions. But what are the responsibilities do we have? Is that we have a differentiated responsibilities. So they talk about the principles of them. They want to find a replacement to the Kyoto Protocol, where the developed nations were getting a lot of uncomfortable about that. But the developed countries want emission targets for everyone, but the developing nations were not ready, especially countries like China, India, and Brazil too. Then we have is COP21 of Paris. The Paris Climate Agreement has come, and this is now the COP26, which is now going to be held in Glasgow. So that is what we have for the day, guys, and yeah, that's what we will be ending here, because we have covered the day's newspapers of both yesterday as well as today, and it's not just in Hindu alone. We will be covering Hindu, Indian Express, and PIB, whatever is needed for the examination perspective. So with this, guys, we'll be ending the session here. And guys, as I told you, that till 27th of October, you have an amazing offer running on Unacademy, where you will be getting a 25% discount by default and 10% discount using the referral code. It's Ajay IAS 10. If you can use it, you will be getting a discount of 35% in total. The offer valid till 27th of October. So see you all very soon. That is tomorrow at the same time at 11:30 a.m. with the daily news analysis of 26th of October 2021. Till then, take care, have a great day, and Jai Hind everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.